Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fantasy Football Universe. I am Aaron St. Dennis. Follow me everywhere at FF Mad Scientist, joined by Jesse Moeller at JMoeller05. Today, we're here with some Week 3 waiver wire targets. It's not an exciting week. Having said that, I feel like I'm spending more money this week than I was last week. I know last week it was a case of I put in a bunch of $1 bids for 4 or 5 running backs, and I just let the chips fall where they may. I'm kind of teetering here. We'll get into some of the options. I have a couple of players I really like, depending on, obviously, there's going to be some leagues where you're more needy at quarterback, stuff like that. But I have a couple where I think the one we're going to spend the most time on is going to be Carson Steele. I've wavered between having 90% of my fab on Carson Steele and having 2% of my fab on Carson Steele. I thought it was him, then it was, but Ryan's going to get all the work. Okay, but then it's going to be Carson Steele. But then they brought in Kareem Hunt, and then this, and then that, and every 2 seconds I change it. I think at this point I've hedged my bets, and I'm putting in 10% bids. If I get him, great. If not, oh well. He just seems like, I know it's not Kyren Williams, but this is the Kyren Williams situation that presented itself. A guaranteed he's out. That's why I get it. I get the ceiling for Jordan Mason, but if you had told me at the time when Jordan Mason was the waiver wire pickup, if you had told me CMC was going on the waiver wire, that greatly changes how much I'm investing on him. Whereas Pacheco, we know he's out. So broken leg, this is going to be longer rather than shorter. Okay, so here's what we'll do. We're going to start with the quarterbacks. I got to write this down on timestamp here. Sorry, guys. StreamYard changed the way they've done things, so I have to do things manually. Fuckers making more work for me. All right, quarterbacks. I'm going to sort through my article first, fantasyfootballuniverse.com, and then I'm going to go over and see, Sleeper has a couple of trendy ones, but my article is sorted by rostership, I guess. So you've got your deep league options. Those are the guys who are available in 0 to 25% of leagues. They're Derek Carr. Then we've got a whole bunch of messy looking names. Derek Carr is the belle of the ball, in that group. Then it's Sam Darnold, Will Levis, Daniel Jones, Gardner Minshew, Malik Willis. It's pretty freaking ugly aside from Carr there. So like I said, that's what the waiver wire looks like in your deep leagues or super flex. Medium league options, we've got Geno, we've got Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson. Geno is the easy one for me there. Rodgers, Watson, both look kind of crappy to different degrees. Shallow league options, the top option here, I never thought I'd see this, is easily Baker Mayfield with Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence just being okay. So, like I said, it seems to be there's one really awesome option at each tier level. Derek Carr is the guy I want if I'm in a deep league. Geno if I'm in a medium league. Baker in a shallow league. I think I would rank them season long. Baker, Carr, Geno, Baker, Geno, Carr. Baker's the top for me. I know the Saints are scoring 45 points a game, but it's been a lot of Alvin Kamara. It's still only 20 points for Carr, but I don't know. What do you think here of the quarterback options?
I think they're all relatively similar. I think Geno's the best individual quarterback, evidenced by the fact he had the highest pressure rate of any quarterback in the NFL last week. Like, he was under pressure nonstop, and he was exemplary. So, I think as far as safety goes, they're all relatively safe. If you're chasing ceiling, it really becomes how much you think they're passing, because Carr's been so efficient, they're not passing a lot. Geno, they've actually run a lot more than we've expected, so I'm curious to see if that switch. And if it does, it unlocks another tier for him where he get past those guys. And Baker, they're just doing wonderful things with that offense, and Chris Godwin's unlocking him. So, yeah, I would just go basically, placed on the lowest guy available of those three, because I'm fine with all of them. They're all going to be borderline, high-end QB2s each week, give or take. If Carr keeps this going, obviously it'll be higher. But, it's really hard to bet on this level of efficiency, because we're talking double-digit touchdown rate. That's record-setting levels of touchdown rate. We don't see that ever. So he's going to regress at some point, and it just – so I don't mind not getting Carr, but I'm fine with all three of those guys. And the other guy, I know it's gross, but Deshaun Watson's still top 12 in fantasy points, per game. So if you want to just, go on those guys, can't get those guys, put a really cheap bid on Watson if it's available, because unlike Rodgers, he gives you more upside just because of how he scores points. It's gross. I know it's ugly. The same thing like Daniel Jones and those guys. It's going to be ugly, but they'll give you fantasy points, and it's okay. So that's kind of how I'd sort through them.
it's funny. I kind of have like a little waiver flow sheet I run through here, and it's always regardless. There's always those revolving door. I wrote an article on this. The revolving door position at the end of your bench. There's just that one guy. Oh, he didn't work. Next guy up. So I always start with what I think is the running back to add. So I put in some bids on that. Then I go to wide receivers and maybe tight ends. But then I always end it, even in single quarterback. If I have that crappy guy on my bench that I just want to get rid of, and I have, like, I'll put in the waiver claim Carson Steele for bench player, Jalen Naylor bench player, blah, blah. But when I get down to it, even in single QB, I have a few where I said, okay, well, if I don't get those position players, I'm going to add Baker or Carr or whatever, because like even in the leagues where I have Lamar as my starter, they're not starting over Lamar, but I'll add them as a second QB in case I need them for a bye week. And at this point, while they're hot, it's more about I'm playing keep away, because like I look in a couple of leagues, I'm playing teams the next few weeks who could conceivably need those starting quarterbacks. And the last thing I need is them to pick up Derek Carr while he's on a heater, and I lose out to Derek Carr in his 3 good weeks. So, and like I said, there's no thing, sometimes defending against an opponent or another team, having them is the best strategy. So, even in a single QB, I'll play defense here. Sleeper did have some other options. So what was that?
There's leagues where you're starting like Caleb. I'm saying there's leagues where people are starting like Caleb Williams, Justin Fields, and those guys, and they've struggled, like immensely struggled. They're not getting fantasy points. So if you're going against those guys, you can pick up one of these guys to play keep away. So if they play those guys, they're still that low ceiling play, then that's a win for you for sure each week.
I have a couple of those where I'm the guy with the struggling quarterback, and trust me, Baker, Geno, Carr are high up on the priority list, and I'm going to be putting in a solid amount of fab on them. I don't really love any of the other options, like I said. Darnold, Levis, Jones, Minshew, Malik Willis, they're all desperation options. Rodgers and Watson are more mediocre. I don't expect a high ceiling. They're floor options. Herbert and Lawrence, I think, are the guys where I'm buying them if I can stash them in hopes that maybe they turn it around and I can use them later. Sleeper has some other options. They aren't any prettier than what I suggested. They are the Dolphins duo of Skylar Thompson, Tyler Huntley, and then Andy Dalton, the fucking Red Rocket, is in our waiver column.
He gives DeAndre Johnson
aside from there's big names, like there's Carr, Geno, Mayfield, and then like the 4 I said, Herbert, Lawrence, Rodgers, Watson. Those are all household names. The other shit heap here, any interest in any of these fucking guys?
Yeah, I'm with Darnold. I'm fine with Darnold depending on matchups, because that offense is very quarterback proof. Like it's one of the best systems for any quarterback. So he doesn't even honestly have to be that good, which Darnold's not, but he's making throws, evidence about what they're doing. It's going to be up and down with him. But if he gets a good matchup, he could pop out for 20 plus points with that passing attack. And if Jefferson and, Adams and all those guys are healthy. So he'd be the other guy. And it's like Daniel Jones, the other one, just based on how they score points. But the Jones and Watson guys are gross. I think Malik Willis is more of a floor play than anything else. We saw how they used them last week. Everything was short, close to the vest. They weren't really running a very complex scheme, and they're going to do that until he's out, until Love's back. So you could go with Malik Willis as well, and he'll give you like a nice, 10 to 15 floor each week.
I'll tell you one thing. It is a good, robust running back year for those of you who loaded up on running back, because tight end is a fucking wasteland. Quarterback has been brutal. Fucking wide receivers all over the place. Depending on who you got, I guess, as your high-end running back, because a lot of them have been injured as well. But good God, is it a barren wasteland? It's not pretty out there. I think I named everyone, but is there anyone you think that I missed? Anyone worthwhile that you at any level that you're targeting?
Running back? We're talking about quarterback still.
No. Quarterback, still quarterback.
Oh no, I think we covered all of the guys. If you're really like desperate, like I know people are picking up Andy Dalton, but man, it's gonna be rough with Andy Dalton. So I wouldn't even go through the motions unless you're just in the deepest of leagues and that's all your only shot. Then sure, but outside of that, I'm just letting other people take Andy Dalton.
Do you think Andy Dalton is going to do anything here? You think he has any potential?
No? I think he can help our boy Deontay. That's my only hope for Andy Dalton. Their offense will get better than Their offense will get better, but like it's so low. No.
I had that monster league that I play in through Toilets to Titles, and I won this week, and I traded away Deontay for Jamison Williams. But I apparently posted it in the wrong chat. So the guy who had a message back and said, "Hey, I see that they just added Andy Dalton. I'll give you a chance." He's like, "You sure you really want to trade away Deontay?" I'm like, "I'm not buying in on this. I am not doing this. I don't care. This is like Josh Dobbs, except not even as good. He's going to be useful for maybe a week." This is a great spot where I know we were the Deontay guys all off season, but if Red Rocket comes in and Deontay has one good week, fucking sell high.
Yeah, it's all about, I think you're probably gonna need multiple weeks of him to produce to sell high. But yeah, like if you want to get out, you could probably get out for a lot more than you could last week just because. And by the way, the expected points king, you want to know who it is? Fucking Deontay Johnson. Once again, just killed us with those expected points. It's brutal. It's like it's like him. The guys in Denver, it's rough life for them, man. It's rough life.
Justin Fields is announced as the starter again this week, so I guess that's one last one to talk about. Not necessarily talk about, but mention if he's still rosterable. Although I know in past when he did start, he was terrible in real life, but he was great for fantasy. It seems to be the opposite in Pittsburgh. He's completely unusable for fantasy, but he's a half decent NFL quarterback now because he is the ultimate game manager. So we'll move on here. We've got running back next. So deeper league options, it's kind of a mess. Carson Steele's the guy I want. We're going to have to talk deeper about that. Let me list off the options here. Ray Davis, Antonio Gibson, Braylon Allen, Justice Hill, Jeff Wilson Jr., Tyrone Tracy Jr., Samaje Perine. Medium leagues, we've got Alexander Madison, Chubbard, Rico Dowdle, Blake Corum, Ty Chandler, and the shallow options. For those of you, I don't know if Zach Charbonnet is rostered, but if he's not, change that. Tyjae Spears, who I still have hope for. Gus Edwards and Zeke, who seem to be fading by the day. But Zach Charbonnet, I was just waiting. I was hoping that both the running backs last night wouldn't finish as top 12s. They did. They finished inside the top 12, which bumped Zach Charbonnet down to RB13 on the week, which is a shame because I had shit talk queued up because in last week's waiver wire, I put that if Walker doesn't play, Charbonnet should be added everywhere because he has RB1, like potential to be an RB1, so top 12. And don't think if he had not squeaked, someone called me out and said, "You're a fucking moron, blah, blah, blah." Oh, don't think if he finished as a top 12 RB, I wasn't fucking calling that receipt in right away. Oh, yeah. He finished as 13, so I had to keep my mouth shut. He just missed out on me getting to talk some shit. But so here, I guess the other options, Sleeper they got even worse. Kareem Hunt, Cam Akers, Deonta Foreman is an interesting one with that split there. Brian Robinson. How the hell is Brian Robinson available in any leagues? But anyways, running backs. What's your thoughts here? What running backs are you looking for?
So I want guys who, if they step into a role similar to what we've seen Jordan Mason do or Charbonnet do, they could become these truly elite bell cows. Not exactly the same level of player, but give you like 80, 90%. So if you're looking at these rosters and somehow like a Braylon Allen's available, because you see how they use Breece Hall, like these are the guys I want to roster. If you can't get immediate production from one of these Chiefs running backs or whatever, they're not available, or you don't want to bid up on those guys. You want to get the elite, high upside, like utility handcuffs, because if an injury happens, those guys become far more valuable than anybody you're picking up. And particularly if you're set on your roster, like you don't need production, don't target these Chiefs wide receiver, these running backs, for any of those guys. Go for the truly elite handcuffs that if an injury happens, they'll jump into your lineup because that's league-winning production. So it's all about roster dependent. And if you need production, go get those guys. Go get Madison, go get Gibson and all of those players. But if you don't need production and you're just looking for like moonshots, take the truly elite upside handcuffs, because if injury happens, those guys are going to win you leagues, similar to what Jordan Mason's doing in San Francisco right now, or Zach Charbonnet as long as Ken Walker's out. So that's kind of how I would view my roster construction and make it team dependent, because obviously if you need production, go get the production. But if you don't, like I worry about Blake Corum even in the Rams offense now, just because that Rams offense is a disaster. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, he's still a guy I'm targeting.
But that I find is the hardest part with doing these waiver wire columns. Mm-hmm. That's why I like to give lots of options for different formats, but it's so team specific. Like if you go in and you tell me I need to win this week, or I can afford to lose a couple of weeks, but I'm looking to load up for the future. It's different options. You tell me I'm in a dynasty league and I'm in a rebuild, or I'm in a dynasty league and I'm second place and I want to contend. It's different options. So it's kind of, we're going to list off everything we think is relevant, and you guys kind of tailor what works for your league. Like Carson Steele, it's obviously, I don't think it might be a long-term dynasty stash, but I think he's relevant for me. He's the guy that I'm targeting in all my redraft leagues, just because I think he's guaranteed to get some volume here for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Zach Charbonnet, like I said, he's only 68% rostered. I don't know how that's so low. If he's available, I think Walker misses a couple more weeks here. If he's available, I'm taking him. If I need to win this week, if I need to win next week, if I need to rebuild, Zach Charbonnet's a solid target everywhere. I never really liked him as a player, but as we've seen, I think that's a very improved offense. And I think it was who's the coordinator they lost, who's now in Chicago? Was it Waldron?
Yeah, from Seattle. Yeah,
He's fucking awful. He's the problem. He's why Seattle's offense sucked for 1 year and why Chicago's offense sucks right now. He runs the most boring, bland, bullshit offense you've ever seen, and that's why Seattle looks so much better. It's also a case of, man, I was listening earlier to some of the stuff and watching the highlights of the New Orleans game. Clint Kubiak's doing some crazy shit. 40% of plays, not only is he using motion, but he's using play action, which is like 8% higher than any other team uses even just play action on its own. It's fucking insane, some of these offenses. So they underestimate, how much of an impact a shitty coordinator can have. And I think you see it in the 1 year where Geno was just awful last year and the Seahawks kind of sucked, and now they look much better. So obviously, Zach Charbonnet, I'm dropping whatever I have to get him. Redraft league, I guess I don't really think it matters if you need to win this week, if you're, whether it's a long-term play. Who's your top option aside from Zach Charbonnet? Is it Carson Steele? It's Carson Steele for me. And what percent of your budget, if it is, are you think you're looking? Like, I don't think there's a 50% guy this week.
No, probably not. Like, a lot of these guys are either splitting work, like the Chiefs. If you want a piece of the Chiefs backfield, I would target both of these guys. Because, I don't think we know how it's going to shake out. And usually the high-value touches go to the guy who's in the third downs and long distance. That seems like it's going to be P. Ryan, but, Steele could do a little bit of that too. So I would target both of these guys with at least, 10%. You're probably going to have to go 20 with how people are going to get excited about the Chiefs backfield. But, I would target both of them, see if you can get one. Because P. Ryan could be the more valuable guy, like Steele could be. And then they have Hunt. I think Hunt is total dust, but he might get goal line work. And if that happens, I think that hurts Steele more than it does P. Ryan. So I don't mind targeting P. Ryan instead of Steele. But I want both of these guys to see how it shakes out, just because, like we said, it's a Chiefs running back. And we saw McKinnon, a couple years ago. He was a top 12 running back down the stretch for you. So, you can see these guys in bit roles, at least in these offenses, still be valuable for you. So I don't mind throwing a little bit of both of them, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think I have any P. Ryan, mainly because – or I didn't put any bids on him, mainly because he was rostered in most leagues, because a few weeks ago he was the thing, so everyone picked him up. But I have a ton of bids, I think, in on Carson Steele, mostly in redraft, because Dynasty he seems to be owned everywhere. But my bids are anywhere between 20 and 30%, depending on I've got a couple of flex spots where I've got just injuries. And I had at one point I had Devon Vele, I had Alan Lazard in there. I can't even remember what shit heap I started last week, but I'm sitting there and I'm going, fuck it. If I have the potential starting, even if he loses the passing downs work to P. Ryan, I don't think it's an issue. Kareem Hunt, because they didn't sign him, they brought him in. So
yeah, they brought him in.
I don't think that's an issue. But even if P. Ryan takes all the receiving work, I don't care. I'm picking up Carson Steele here. If he gets 10 to 15 touches a game and can give me flex production and keep my season alive until I get back Debo's and CMC's, I'll put up 30% for that. It doesn't matter to me. Other than that,
make the bid.
Braylon Allen's go ahead.
Yes. I was gonna say, if you need the production, go for it. And to your point on Braylon Allen, who you're about to talk about, that's a truly elite handcuff running back, because we see how they use Brees. It's not going to be Brees, but if you give me 90%, 80% of Brees, dude, that's still a freaking top 12-ish running back. So, I want those guys. I'll also throw money at Tracy, who's on the list. He's another guy. Singletary's getting a ton of work. Tracy's also a good receiver. You can do that. If you need short-term production, you can do Chuba Hubbard. Like you could do these other guys, even though they're worse offenses, they're going to get volume. That's the most important thing at running back, man. If they get volume, like that's all that matters.
Yeah, there aren't too many high priority options this week at running back. Like I said, if Charbonnet is available in your league, I assume he's not. If he is, go get him. He's worth 50%. I'll pay up for him. He's an elite handcuff who looks like he's already cashed in on the handcuff lottery. It's like Mason. If Mason's available, at this point he shouldn't be. Go get him. My money is mostly going on Carson Steele. Having said that, like I said when I started the show, I've had 75% budget bids on Carson Steele. Then I reined it into 10. I'm falling somewhere around 20 to 25%, but it's league specific. Like I said, if I'm desperate for a flex or a running back, I don't care if I have to spend 25% of my budget to buy a couple of weeks here. I'm trying to be a little more aggressive early on. I found in the past, I'm traditionally the guy where I'll get to the end of the season and it's like, well, fuck, I have all this money left and I don't need it. So,
yeah,
because by halfway point, half the teams aren't bidding anymore. And then when you get to the playoffs, there's like 4 or 6 teams. So I'm trying to be a little more aggressive here.
And I would say just running backs in general, they're so much more valuable. Like, particularly this year, we're seeing on running backs reviews. I want my bench just to be loaded with running backs that have upside if an injury happens or whatever. So I would just target as many running backs as you can. Because if you get the injury lottery, like you get Mason or you get Charbonnet, like that's a guy that's a difference maker for you in the lineup. So yeah, I want all the running backs potentially.
All right, moving on to the wide receivers. Again, different tier options here. Deep leagues, under 25% owned. Jalen Naylor of the Vikings looks pretty solid. The guy who I've been ridiculed for all fucking offseason is coming through. Let me take my Quentin Johnston victory lap. I get it. I watched this one specifically the other day because I said, this is just 3 of them. They're each getting equal targets. Whoever scores is the guy. I watched the last 2 games for the Chargers. It's not necessarily the case. They're designing touches for Quentin Johnston. They're designing funny ways to get him involved in the offense, and he's starting to look like he learned how to use his size and speed to his advantage, and is starting to look like the player I thought. Having said that, you shouldn't have to drop more than 5% to get him. Jalen Naylor, you might have to you can get a $1 bid. Some other options before we break all these down. Sorry, I got on a Quentin Johnston rant because I do that. So deeper leagues, we had Naylor, Johnston, Alec Pierce, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Polk, Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson. Medium leagues, we've got the not nearly as sexy names: Gabe Davis, Jerry Jeudy, Khalil Shakir, Romeo Doubs, Jacoby Myers. The shallow leagues, these are the ones these are mostly league specific. If you're in a league with sharp guys who know what they're talking about, almost none of these guys are available. It's amazing in my home leagues how many leagues nobody's even heard of. Rashid Shaheed, JSN is owned in a bunch of leagues. JMO is not owned in many leagues unless it's my Detroit Homer leagues here, and Lad McConkey as well. So there are some great options there. If the Shaheed, JSN, JMO, if those 3 are rostered, you are not rostered, you have to go get them immediately. There are some good options here. Sleeper also adds in Juwan Jennings, who I'm not really interested in, Darnell Mooney, Jordan Whittington, I don't really want, Josh Reynolds, Andre Yoshivas. So for the most part, I prefer the guys in our piece here. So there's some really good options if you're in a shallow league, Shaheed, JSN, JMO. I don't really like the medium level, but some of the deep league guys here, Jalen Naylor, QJ, Jalen Tolbert had a really nice catch. And then you have Pearson Wan'Dale. Wan'Dale, the targets fell off this week. Pierce is interesting, but with Josh Downs returning, he scares me. I don't know. Who really stood out to you here?
Yeah, I think if you're deciding between a wide receiver in the Chargers offense and a wide receiver in the Vikings offense, you should target the Vikings wide receiver because there's just significantly more upside in that offense, unless the Chargers wide receiver is a dominant target earner. Like if he turns into a 30% target share guy, then hell yeah, give me that guy. But I think to your point on the Chargers, like they're very much floor plays because they're going to distribute it around. No one's really running all the routes or all the snaps. It's like mixing and matching. I think Lad McConkey has the most upside of those guys, but he's heavily rostered and it's highly unlikely you can get him, right? So, yeah, you could throw a dart on QJ. He's probably a lot cheaper because people have that stank all over him still, so he's not going to cost you much. In the meantime, with the injuries to Addison and Jefferson, I think Jefferson's going to be okay. But we saw when Naylor was on the field, he could produce, and this is what I'm talking about with KOC in that scheme. So, yeah, I'm fine throwing darts on Naylor if you need, like, short-term production. He could do it for you. Like, we saw it. I'm fine with him rostering him and throwing him a few bucks because very few people know much about him. It's similar to kind of like Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson, where we did this the week before, where it was like, all right, a lot of people know a lot about these guys, but it's the Rams passing attack. The difference is the Rams offense has gone to crap. Like it's not really an offense I want to target at this point because the offense is so bad and there's just so many injuries where they don't have any truly elite alphas in that team. So if Jefferson's healthy, I still think Naylor's fine because Jefferson takes such coverage away. Like he's the focal point of that offense. Naylor could still be a valuable guy for you. So until Addison comes back and Jefferson comes back, like you can probably start Naylor.
Yeah, the coaching staff has said that they're kind of using him. It's not even Jefferson or Addison that worries me. They said they're using him in the TJ Hawkinson role. So that scares me when Hawkinson comes back. And truthfully, I think he's a 1% budget guy. He has potential, but I don't think anyone knows him. So even if you're really high on him, don't put more than a few bucks. Like the only reason I know him is because he went to college at Michigan State, and I fucking hate Michigan State. It's the only reason I had any idea who he was. I hate Michigan State. Like I said, I think for me,
I don't mind.
Yeah, Tolbert. I don't mind Tolbert there as a second option, especially with the tight end being Ferguson being injured. Quentin Johnson, like I said, is the guy for me, especially in Dynasty. I just think he had all the tools coming out of college. I get he was raw. He was a terrible catcher. He was a body catcher. He did all these bad things, but I just feel like he's one of those guys where there's enough talent that if they could just coach the shit part of his game out, he could really be well-rounded, and the Chargers are in desperate need of that because I think as good as Ladd McConkey is, I think Ladd McConkey is a slot receiver. I don't think he's a big-bodied, deep threat outside receiver, and QJ has the potential to be that, and I always prefer – I know it's been weird the way for fantasy football, you've had the Cooper Kupps and the slot guys become ultra-productive, but in the end, I still want the big slot or the big outside guys. He's going to have boom and bust weeks because that's the nature of the big alpha receiver, but I'm all in on Quentin Johnston. I have been. I know everyone gives me a hard time. Wan'Dale Robinson, I liked a whole lot more before this week. He went from 12 targets to 4, and they just funneled all those extra targets to Malik Neighbors. So that one kind of worries me. That could also be just because they face the Commanders, and the Commanders suck ass. Is there anyone here that we didn't really discuss that you think is worth mentioning?
I mean, if Drake May does take over the job, I'll have interest in like Jalen Polk. Like his skill set matches up. He's not producing right now. Like no one's really going to produce with Brissett. It kind of is what it is. The Seahawks were terrible against tight ends last week, so the Hunter Henry stuff is just a mirage. Like I wouldn't count on that either. So if you want to stash Jalen Polk in really deep leagues and whenever Drake May comes in, I think there's upside for him in that offense because they're going to pass more. Like Drake May just opens up the offense to a whole nother level. But overall, yeah, like if you can't get Quentin Johnston, you could do Tolbert, you could do and Naylor, I think would be the two other guys in really deep leagues. The medium league guys, like I think Shakir is probably the one I would target out of that group just because it's it's Josh Allen, it's the Bills offense. Like it's that simple. We want who's ever going to be the wide receiver one on that offense. We don't know how it's going to go, but Shakir's getting way more work than I'm blanking on his name. The other guy,
Coleman.
The other slot guy. What is his name? Oh my gosh.
Who was there? Curtis Samuel's hurt.
Yes,
Who was there?
Curtis Samuel. Thank you. I was like,
isn't Samuel hurt?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with Samuel, but it's opening it up for him. So I think Shakir, who's been good on like yards per route run basis on targets and stuff like that, like there's upside for him in that offense. I don't want a Broncos wide receiver. Like I'm just not doing it. So like any Broncos wide receiver, just gonna pass on. Judy's fine in Cleveland, but I don't really want the Jerry Judy experience. He's just a worse version of like what David Njoku did.
Did you update? I realized you just caught my typo that I caught when I read
saw that. Yeah,
I instinctively put Broncos, and I said that's not.
No Broncos. We're not.
I was
not doing
thinking here of Judy if they make a QB change away from Nix to Stidham, like I hear they're going to do, and then I look at him like, wait, he's not on the Broncos. I had to change it, but you have to refresh your waiver article here for it to come up. It says Browns now, but I caught it. Yeah. Okay, so assuming you're in a league where Shaheed, JSN, JMO, and McConkey are not available, who is your top wide receiver option out of all these guys? Well, it could be anyone. It could be off the board. And how much of your 100% budget are you willing to spend?
So are the middle guys available, like the Shakirs of the world and stuff like that? Or are we just talking about deep leagues?
Not anyone. Your wide receiver. Who's your top ad at wide receiver in all your leagues this week?
Of the if you need production, I'm gonna take Shakir. Then you could do the Rams experience with Demarcus Robinson and those guys. It's super low this week, so like it's gonna be rough. I would rather do Jalen Naylor, so I would go Shakir than like Jalen Naylor, and then the Rams guys, and like Tolbert and kind of that range. If you need production, I can go like 15% on Shakir. I don't really think you need to. Like I don't think he's a hot name, so I think 15% could get you him pretty easily. And you could kind of get that like flex level production and just live with it. If you want the upside shot in the intermediate time, sure, take a shot on Naylor or take a shot on Tolbert. Go with those offenses that have good quarterbacks and see how it works out. That'd be fun. Who's your top guy in like deeper leagues? Is it Naylor?
No, depends on what I need. If I need more immediate production, it's Naylor. If I have a little bit more patience and I want to play for upside, it's Quentin Johnston. Like I said, though, it depends on what I need. If I could add Naylor for the next month and then have Quentin Johnston for after that, I think it'd be a perfect swap out because I think Johnston's still on his way up. But
yeah, and then I would just stash Folks the one guy to stash.
Let's move on to the most fun position, tight end. Good God. The starting tight ends are ugly, let alone the waiver wire ones. So the deep league option, we have Zach Ertz leading the way, ruining the world for rookie tight ends everywhere year after year. Then we have Jonnu Smith, Luke Schoonmaker for as long as Ferguson's out, Brenton Strange for as long as Evan Ingram's out. Medium leagues, we got Chigo Okonkwo, Hunter Henry, Noah Fant. And then I should add to that one. He's not on here, but I will add Mike Gesicki. And in shallow leagues, these ones are they're all right around 70, 75% rostered. If Brock Bowers is somehow available on your waiver wire, add him. I also have Isaiah Likely and Taysom Hill in here. I don't like them nearly as much. If you roster Hill or Likely and Bowers is on your waiver wire, go get rid of him. I have a league where it's tight end premium, but I have a league where I already roster 2 tight ends. Like I have Kittle and Pitts, and someone dropped Bowers, and I went and picked up Bowers. I'm carrying 3 tight ends, and it's in the tight end premium league.
So if it's
before we get into that, let's do
good.
18-team PPR trade Tyreek for Gibbs, Terry, and Fant.
Yes,
Tyreek for Gibbs, Terry, and Fant. Depth tight end is Theo. I don't really know if Fant helps your depth at tight end.
No, but I bet you Terry does at wide receiver. I know it's gross for like Terry, but like there's so much upside with him. In the 18-team league, like I have Gibbs over Tyreek until Tyreek gets like his quarterback back because it's just gonna be so up and down for him. So I would just do Tyreek for Gibbs straight up. But yeah, with those 3 pieces, like you got Theo Johnson and those guys, like you might as well take a shot on Fant. There's at least upside where he can catch touchdowns in the Seahawks offense, right? So I'm fine doing that deal personally. Like that seems like a good deal.
Pretty much all the tight ends we named are on this. Yep, Sleeper didn't have anyone we missed. So obviously, like I said, this is one where if by some miracle Brock Bowers is available in your league, you have to instantly
100%.
change that.
100% of your time.
Aside from that, who are you looking for here?
I would. So if Brock Bowers is available, go make a trade where you get some extra fab to make sure you can outbid everyone on Brock Bowers. Because he's that valuable tight end.
I like that.
He's the one tight end like you can trust right now.
He could be the tight end one.
The thing about Zach Ertz, he's been cock blocking tight ends since 2018 when they drafted Dallas Goedert. That's what Zach Ertz does. He said no.
He did it to Trey McBride. He did it to to Dallas Goedert.
just a
maybe
nightmare,
if Dallas Goedert hadn't had to face Zach Ertz, maybe Dallas Goedert would have a higher finish than tight end 10. And I wouldn't fucking hate him so much.
I mean, you could, if we're talking like Jonnu Smith, who is on the Dolphins right now, not the Patriots, by the way. But so if Jonnu Smith is like, you could play him this week against the Seahawks because his role is actually going to be beneficial of what they're trying to do with Skylar Thompson. He's not going to be throwing it downfield. He's going to keep it short for Yak. So I don't mind a dart throw on Jonnu Smith this week. It's just matchup dependent, man, with some of these tight ends and these teams are going against because tight end is a dumpster fire right now. So if there's any viable tight ends who are going to be running routes, I want them because we don't know how it's going to go. You can redo the Hunter Henry. Like, you just got to be counting on a touchdown. Same thing with Noah Fant. Like, it's just really hard for those guys. But you just got to count for
all the more reason why I couldn't believe someone dropped Brock Bowers in a tight end premium league. I don't
Is this
understand
like a really
it.
shallow league?
And they use like a 4th round pick on him. No, it's not a shallow league. It's that monster league with tight end premium. And I was like,
Why would
okay,
you? I don't even.
bonus. They dropped him for another tight end too, and I can't even remember who it was, but it wasn't anyone good. Might have been Ferguson, but
yeah, because Ferguson's like his. I know it said he was like doubtful. He's gonna be out for a while. That ankle looked pretty serious. Like, I don't know what's going on with Mostert. Like, is he gonna be healthy? Like,
if he ever plays.
Yeah, so they're gonna run more. Like, I can tell you that much. I think it actually the guy who benefits more. They talked about it this week. McDaniels is really in love with the chain. Like, he's talking about it. He's like, yeah, he's like asking for more work, and he's like, I'll happily give him more work. So I think like a change is going to get all the potential work he can handle. They'll probably bring in Wright a little bit and then try to integrate him this week because like they just need more explosive weapons to kind of help those guys and make it simpler on their the quarterback. So yeah, if he's playing,
it's a chest injury. He's not expected to go on injured reserve, but could miss multiple weeks. This is going to be one of those fucking ones where they say he'll be back next week. He'll be back next week. He'll be back. Oh, no, never mind. We're putting him on IR, and he wastes fucking 6 weeks a year. I hate those. Just put him on IR and get it over with.
Follow the injury guys on Twitter. They know what they're talking about with like Mostert and those guys because like we're just more guessing. They actually are smart and know what they're talking about. So,
well, that was I'm not Sleeper. That's what the Sleeper update said from RotoWire.
Yeah, so I would not count on Mostert the next couple weeks. Like, just stash him on your bench. He'll come back and be viable. But, like, in the meantime, it's going to be, like, I'm lowering those wide receivers. Like, a chain's, like, the one guy I'm counting on. And then, like, Jonnu Smith, you could throw a flyer on this week, I think, against Seahawks defense. Because they struggle against tight ends. They'll probably struggle against Jonnu Smith this week.
Okay, so assuming Bowers is not available and it's not Christmas in your league, which tight end are you looking for here? And how much are you willing to bid on them? For me, I think it's if I'm in immediate need of production, it's either I think Schoonmaker has some upside while Ferguson's out. I'm only putting a couple bucks on him. If I just need me a boring low end tight end 1, high end tight end 2, I'll take Zach Ertz and just take my 8 points a week. I think Chig has some upside. Henry is going to have boomer bust weeks, but I don't really have one that I really love here. Do you?
Yeah, I like my fear with Schoonmaker is he only ran 17 of 46 routes last week. He needs to dramatically increase that route participation if he's going to be viable because it's just you got to catch touchdown. Otherwise, you can't do anything in that offense. So it might take him a little bit longer with that injury for him to fully get up to the routes we're looking for. So like likely that it's a super up or down. I know he's like one of the higher roster guys. But yeah, the best way to do it is just go look at projections for the top tight ends available. Just go by that because they're giving you the guys with the highest roles, the best outcomes. So I guess sometimes as simple as it sounds, yeah, like I'm going to target Jonnu Smith. Like I'd take him over, like I'd prefer him to Fant this week. I'd probably prefer him to Henry. Like I'd prefer him to Brenton Strange, Schoonmaker. He's probably going to be pushing borderline top 12-ish tight end for me. So I'm going to go Jonnu Smith. But outside of that, yeah, you could do Henry. You could do Fant. You could do those guys. You need a touchdown from all of these tight ends because they're not that focal points of their offense. So if you want to do the Henry thing again, it's just that seems highly unlikely that's going to happen. But yeah, target those guys.
All right. And that, I believe, brings us to a wrap, mercifully, on the week 3 waiver wire. Hopefully there's a few less injuries. Having said that, I won pretty much every league that I cared about this week. And I'm not doing too bad. So it was a good week. Check back, tomorrow where it's an AFC game, I think, on Thursday night. Yes. So it'll be AFC home game previews tomorrow at noon. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.